Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Simplifying IT's Tech Tips. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about a topic relating to phishing sites, and we're actually going to provide to you one of the tools that we use in the back end of the software that protects our customers' computers automatically and helps legitimize a web address that you're visiting. Now, these tools are available to end users. It's just not a lot of people are aware that they're out there. So what we're going to do today is get started and show you how to access this specific tool. So if you navigate down to a web page, open a browser, doesn't matter which browser it is that you open, up in the very top address bar, if you can highlight and delete that field and simply type brightcloud.com/tools and then hit enter. That's going to take you to the webroot Bright Cloud Lookup page. Now, why would we want to look up a particular web address for its legitimacy? As I'm sure a lot of you have heard, phishing sites, crypto locker viruses, encryption viruses, ransomware, they are all the types of threats that are surfacing in today's IT dominant world. And these types of malicious viruses and threats are so harmful because they can not only infect the computer, but they can also acquire your critical banking information, but then encrypt the critical files that are on your computer and then hold you to ransom to make payment to try and unencrypt those files. And in some instances, paying the ransom still doesn't unencrypt those critical files on your computer. So what can you do to protect yourself? Well, this is one of the steps. So at this point now, what we're going to need to do is type in a web address that we want to look up. Now, I've pre-filled some here, so let's look up the Westpac Bank, which is westpac.com.au. We need to tick this box to verify that you're not a robot. Once we've got the green tick there, we can now click Look Up. And let's have a look and see what we find. Okay, here we are. So, the category. The Westpac Bank is financial services, so that checks out. The reputation is 96%. Okay, that's good. It's a trustworthy site. It's had no infections over the past 12 months. Its popularity is high, and the age is 118 months. Now, popularity is one that's a bit speculative. It doesn't always register correctly, but definitely the age it can verify, what category it sits under, and the reputation of that site. Now, let's scroll down a little bit further on that page, and this is where it gets interesting because we can actually have a look and see if there's been any web attacks, if there's been any spam sources, scanners, reputation, all of that sort of stuff that's valuable. Now, if we come down a little bit further here, we can actually have a look at the IP address, and then that references the location of where the Westpac Bank's server is hosted. It's Haymarket here in Australia. Of course, if that came up as a phishing site and the Westpac Bank is hosted in Russia, you're going to seriously question the legitimacy of that site. So let's scroll back up to the top now, and let's pick another one that we can put in there. So we'll just clear that field, and let's go down to ebay.com.au. Now we'll tick the box to verify that we're not a robot, but before I click Look Up on this particular site, what's interesting is a lot of people think that because a web address finishes in .com.au that it's hosted here in Australia, and that is actually not always the case. So let's click Look Up, and you'll actually see that eBay, which makes sense, but the .com.au version is actually hosted in America. Now we can see here that this is an auctions site, so that seems correct. Its reputation is 92%. Its status is trustworthy. It's had no infections in the past 12 months. Popularity is low. You can see here why. Obviously, that's not always absolutely correct, but the age is correct, 117 months. And if we come down here, we can actually move over this field and see that it's hosted in the United States. It's Campbell, United States, and that's the IP address of where the server is, and we've got no attacks in the last 12 months. Now, in regards to the age, eBay itself, of course, if a site has been completely refreshed or a domain has been completely refreshed, then that is going to change the age there. But what's important is if you've been sent a site that's from a bank, a reputable bank, and the age of it is only 6 months, you've got to seriously question the legitimacy of that site. So, what does a phishing site look like? Well, that's probably the most important thing here. Is it's all good and well to verify that the site's correct, but how do you know what to look for if the site is not a legitimate site? So let's clear this field. I've actually already found one. I did a bit of snooping on the internet, and I found a phishing site for us. So let's load that. We'll tick the box to verify, wait for the green tick, and let's click Lookup. Okay, here we go. So it's web hosting site, 81% trustworthy, and here we go. It's had an infection. Now, this can either be a specific phishing site, but in this instance it looks like it is somewhat of a legitimate site that has been hacked, which can happen. So legitimate sites can get hacked, and then they can be disguised as a phishing site to acquire your login details. So we can see here this has had an infection in the past 12 months. Its popularity is low. Again, that's not always a clear indicator, but its age is only 6 months. So that really brings into question if this is a legitimate site, although I think it is. Greenville, United States is its location. There's the IP address. It's a high risk, and there we go. Phishing has been found on this specific site. This is probably a site that someone's reported that through to, and yeah, so this is a big red flag. If this comes up on a site that you've entered in, you are not going to visit that site. I would stay away from it, and if need be, phone the company in question, even advise them that their site has been hacked, but I would stay away from that site. You can always contact your IT department and get them to verify it as well. But this gives you a bit of an overview as to what you can actually be doing manually to check the legitimacy of these sites that you're going to, whether it be someone who has sent you an email for an international payment to a particular gateway, a web address, or whether or not you're just visiting your internet banking site, you're doing your BAS, you're operating in the day-to-day environment of your business. You can now have some peace of mind that you can actually have a window into those web addresses that you're going to. So that's it from us today at Simplifying IT's Tech Tips. I've been speaking with you about the legitimacy of websites, and please feel free to comment, but if you have any other topics that you would like us to do a review on and provide further information, don't hesitate to let us know. Hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I'm Pete from Simplifying IT's Tech Tips.